Hello everyone, and welcome to a new video wherein I go back to my roots and do a part 2 to one of my classic videos, which is things cosplayers don't want to hear. This is a video that I originally did about 6 years ago, and in it I get very salty and share basically things that you shouldn't say to cosplayers. Now, the comments on that video were so interesting because a lot of people disagree. Like, I think the premise of the video is just be a decent human being, right? Like that's really what it boils down to. But people had qualms with what I said. But regardless, I think it's important to make videos like this because it can be a teachable moment. You can watch this video if you're someone who's maybe new to the community or not a cosplayer yourself, but you interact with cosplayers, and you can learn things that you just shouldn't say to cosplayers, because at the end of the day, it's supposed to be a fun hobby and we shouldn't be bringing down other people who are just trying to have a good time. So without further ado, let's get into it. I did a whole video on this one, but I will keep it brief for the sake of this video. That is when someone is selling a cosplay, being like, "Oh no, don't sell that cosplay," or "Oh no, why are you selling that cosplay?" Making a big deal about people selling cosplays. This is a problem for many different reasons, which I get into in that other video, but I will again keep it brief for this video. People's reasons for selling cosplays can differ. It can be because they can no longer store a cosplay. It can be because they've lost interest in the character and the series. It can be because that person no longer fits into that cosplay, but still loves it. So no matter what, by making a big deal out of it, you're not respecting the cosplayer's decision and the cosplayer's autonomy to make those decisions. And you could also be rubbing salt in the wound because perhaps that cosplayer doesn't want to get rid of that cosplay, but for whatever reason, whether it's money, whether it's storage space, whether it's not being able to fit into it, they unfortunately had to make that decision to get rid of that cosplay. So it's just not a productive thing to make a big deal out of it. And the person's already decided, made that huge decision to get rid of that cosplay. Somebody saying, "Oh no, don't do that," or "Oh no, why would you do that?" is not going to change their mind. Like, just accept it and move on. People get well known for doing certain characters, and that's totally fine, but we have to respect people's wishes to move on, people's wishes to maybe, remake the cosplay and make it better. Just like respect cosplayers' decisions to sell their cosplays is what this boils down to. This next one is a little bit related to the previous one, but can still be considered its own thing, and that is saying, you were so good back then, why don't you do X cosplay anymore? I like to think of it as like the glory days, right? Like referring to a cosplayer's glory days, implying that their work back at a certain time period is better than their work now. I was in a phase where I was doing cosplays that I was really excited about, really happy about, really proud to share. And somebody commented on one of my posts saying like, "Oh, why don't you do Elastigirl anymore? You were so good back then," implying that like me doing what I'm doing now is not valuable. And this is just insulting for so many different reasons. Cosplayers grow, cosplayers change, cosplayers get into new things, and by being able to take a break from certain series or stop cosplaying them entirely, they're able to explore new things, learn new techniques, expand their repertoire, find new things that bring them joy, and evolve. And that's really important to appreciate. I've had people, make a big deal out of like cosplays that I used to, that I haven't done for a little while or don't do anymore, and like making a big deal out of the fact that I no longer do that cosplay or haven't done it in a long time, or that I'm doing other stuff. And it's just, again, respect cosplayers' choices. Cosplay is a very self-indulgent hobby. It's something that some people just choose to share with the internet. They're not doing it for anybody but themselves. Like, it's a very personal choice and personal hobby. And it's just like important to appreciate that whatever a cosplayer is currently doing right now, like whatever cosplays they are making and wearing, that's what is bringing them joy right now. And we really have to appreciate that. And the whole point of cosplay is to do what brings you joy, right? Because again, it's a self-indulgent hobby. Let's respect the fact that people are doing cosplays that bring them joy. I think that's what should really be the takeaway. It doesn't matter what they did 5 years ago. It doesn't matter what they're going to do in 5 years. Like, just because they did a cosplay once doesn't mean that that's going to be like their be all end all like forever. Some people, it is, but that's not necessarily the reality for most people. Like some people like to, again, evolve and broaden their horizons. And that doesn't mean that they won't revisit those cosplays later. It just means that that's not what their current interests are now. And we should, you know, appreciate that they are doing what makes them happy. The other part of this is that that content is not just gonna go away. Like you can still look back on the old photos of like when they did whatever cosplay 5 years ago. Let's appreciate that people evolve and that they are doing what brings them interest. The last one is one that happened to me recently, and it was very heartbreaking, and so I wanted to talk about it. And that is saying something along the lines of, aren't you a little too old to be cosplaying? So I was at a family gathering, and I was talking about how I went to a recent convention and had a great time, and a family member of mine said like, oh, you haven't aged out of that yet? And that was really upsetting. Some people do leave cosplay as they get older. It just no longer brings them joy. And they want to use that energy and use those resources to do other things, explore other hobbies, explore other whatever. But for a lot of people, it is a lifelong passion. And I think that's really important to appreciate. You don't just reach like age 30 and suddenly no longer have interests and no longer have hobbies and no longer have things that like bring you joy, right? Like you don't just hit a certain age and suddenly, okay, I'm into nothing except working. That is it. My passion in life is working. Like that just doesn't happen. Sometimes people get these comments from younger people who are like, you know, younger cosplayers looking at older cosplayers being like, oh, they're too old to be doing this. Which if you're a younger cosplayer commenting on like people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, whatever, doing cosplay and saying that they're too old, I have some bad news for you. Like you're gonna get to that point too. And do you expect yourself to just give up this thing that gives you joy just because you're too old? Like cosplay has no age. You can be whatever age you want and cosplay whatever you want, and that should be supported and welcomed. Lifelong passions are lifelong passions. It's not just gonna turn off one day. So I think that's a really important thing to appreciate. The other thing is that when you get older, you usually have more resources to do cosplay. So it becomes easier to like do this hobby that brings you joy, right? Because usually you have more skills, you have maybe more money because you have like a real adult job and you can afford like crickets and resin and all that fun stuff. Like your cosplays can become more sophisticated as you get older and you can put more into it as you get older. So getting older and doing cosplay is not necessarily a bad thing. So I think that's another thing to consider. And those are 4 things that cosplayers don't want to hear. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know in the comments what things as a cosplayer you don't want to hear. And yeah, I hope that this video was entertaining, but also a nice teachable moment. Maybe if you want to say one of these things to a cosplayer, maybe reconsider. And it's just important to, you know, keep this a positive community because cosplay is all about doing what brings you joy. So let's let people do what brings them joy. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. I will see you guys all in the next one. But until then, Panda Faces, please be sure to take care.